Hey YouTube, over the last week I dropped a bunch of really silly games and tilted all the way from 4400 back down to 4250. On Sunday though, I finally hit Grandmaster, and I wanted to review the game that got me there. Prior to this game I was on a pretty absurd win streak. I went from 4300 up to 4500, only dropping a single game over the course of that day. In this game I'm playing a Gold Weather Crotch deck, and I have a write-up for that deck on Gwent that you can find in the description below. My opponent is on Francesca Movement. This ended up being the closest game I played all day, aside from the one match my Spies opponent threw because of the Ulrich bug. My mulligan strategy for this deck has changed quite a bit over time, but I think I found one that's optimal. There's only one bad card in the deck to draw into round 1, the Morkvarg, and it really isn't that bad to draw it, so I mulligan to maximize blacklist value to dig towards Restore, Ulrich, and other powerful singletons in the deck. The only bronze that I tend to not mulligan away is Harpooner. I take the Lacerate here to clear his board. I'm not totally sure I like it, as the Lacerate is a pretty valuable card, but taking it here denies a bunch of potential value from cards like Zoltan. This play might make more sense in a more simplified state than it does here though. It's not like I'm stopping his Zoltan or Commander's Horn from ever getting value. He has plenty of time to put other cards into play that enable them. In the end, while 12 points might not be optimal, it's good enough that I'm comfortable taking it here. So normally I just play Croc here, but I wasn't sure how Morin worked, and I didn't want him to get sniped, so I went for the other card I wanted to establish. For anyone who, like me, is unsure how Morin works, she doesn't trigger on leaders. Also, despite saying she shoots before deploy abilities, armor deploys still trigger first for some reason in this patch. Now that I know his set isn't Morin, I know exactly how this round is going to go. I'll force his pass with Ulrich, and win down a card using Ard to deny value from his to reveal. Getting the redundant Gold Weather out of my hand this round makes locking up the round much easier. Instead of this though, I think I'm supposed to just Ulrich on his ranged row to force the pass. This gives me a little more equity against weather clears in round 3, as whatever I'm bleeding out of him here is probably worth less than the safety of the extra Gold Weather. Crocking here is a consideration, but I'd rather wait for him to pass before deploying the Morkvarg so he doesn't have an easy opportunity to Sharon it for full value. Well, I lied. He plays a pretty big 16-point bronze. That's probably worth more than the drought. And it being 16 points means he sent back Yavin, which prevents him from having the counter spy. This is a position where it'd be really easy to miscount and throw the game with Ulrich. In-game I only did some quick counting, realized it was complicated, and hedged by just playing Croc for big tempo. If we Ulrich melee here, he'll be up 34 points, then take 4 from the drought down to 40. I Ard away his 3 ranged row cards, get shot for 2 for another 13-point swing. After the weather tick, I'm only down by 13. I can Croc for 15, get another weather tick for 4, and then be tied after the Aileron flips. So the obvious line doesn't work. However, we can choose to Quarrel his officer first for a 19-point swing, weather ticks for 4, making the difference only 9. If I Ard his 3-hit point isn't Grim, Marksman and Ulrich, then it's still a 15-point swing, and the weather ticks for another 4, making the difference 10. Aileron flips for 8, and we win the round by 2. So, it works, but there's no way I'm going to be able to do that calculation in 60 seconds I have for my turn. That line also doesn't establish Morkvarg, which is pretty nice to have when your opponent is playing Elven War Dancers to deny an open pass. He Francescas, and I know that Ulrich is safe, so I take the round, opting to thin out Shield Maidens as the finisher. Oh look, a War Dancer. Good thing we have this Morkvarg and can just pass. He closes the round with a much more powerful card than I expected him to. Going into round 3 I couldn't ask for much more. A Duragrier would be nice, but Gremist or even an Axemen make fine restore targets. He plays his Barclay for no value, and I know I'm making GM at this point. Time to just slam my Gold Weather down and ride it to victory. If I wasn't against Scoia'tael, I'd like to just restore an Axeman here instead of Freyaing, so if it dies I could Freya or Sigdrifa the strengthened Axeman. However, running out Restore when I have a solid lead in the last play against the Aglaeus faction would be a throw. I think this Harpooner should probably just be Gremist for Fog on the middle row, and a 12-point Fog if it ticks until the end of the game, and it overloads his single row clears. This Harpoon looks a little silly against Zoltan, which I know is in his deck. So Zoltan happens, and my window with Fogging with Gremist is basically closed. Figuring this is probably the best Quarrel I'll get, I decide to take it, and resign my Gremist to just being a blood-curdling roar. He plays another bricked card, and I have an interesting Gremist here. I could take raw points by bearing Freya for a 13-point Gremist. Unfortunately, this basically bricks my Sigdrifa, leaving it only able to get back a 7-point Axeman. I could Gremist for 11 points, which lets me Sigdrifa the Gremist for a 14-point play next turn, enabling a finisher of Restore for Gremist for 20 points. I probably should have done this, but I didn't see it at the time. The play I opted for was to bear my Harpooner for an 8-point Gremist. This lets my Sigdrifa be 3 from Sigdrifa herself, 8 from Harpooner, 1 from the ping, 6 from the weather ticks for 18 points total. Unfortunately, this dooms my Restore to only being a 12-point Shield Maiden, making the play a total of 38 points. I could put Harpooner on Siege for 4 extra points off the Axeman, but my opponent had only played 2 golds, and I didn't want to turn on his Igni for just 3 extra points. Gremist eating himself here ends up being better than the play that I made by 7 points after the Sigdrifa and Restore are accounted for. From here I'm just playing out the line above. Putting Harpooner Siege after seeing Eskel is definitely better though. He can't have Igni anymore, and his Aglaeus for Bear is probably going to be more points than trying to lacerate me anyway. It's just 4 free points that I threw away. This game really showcases how absurd Silver Spies can be. Even being forced to play 2 cards to take the round, I was still able to decide how long I wanted the round to go. It forced my opponent into a decision: either win the round 2 cards down against carryover, which is almost certainly a lost game, or concede the round and go into a neutral game round 3. The strength of Silver Spies is a large part of what makes the Nilfgaard Spies deck so strong. When you can easily pass your spy in one card, you not only get to decide the length of the round, but you also give your opponent an impossible decision of winning 2 cards up or losing on even. Hope you enjoyed this review. Until next time.